Natalie Sideserf here of Sideserf Cake Studio, and I'm gonna show you how I made a garlic cake. For this cake, I challenged myself to make it within 2 hours. Now I know that sounds like a lot of time, but really it's not. I used wafer paper on this cake and you have to let it dry and it takes time. So I actually pulled off a pretty difficult challenge. If you like this cake, can you do me a favor and like this video? Just that little click really helps us reach more people. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, do it now. We put out new cake videos every Monday. So let's get started.
Here I have real garlic that I will use not only as a reference while making this cake, but also as a mold to create a vanilla wafer paper garlic skin. I used a small circle cutter to cut out a round layer of red velvet cake. Then I cut that layer in half so I have 2 tiny layers, and I'm spreading some chocolate buttercream and I sandwich the cake layers back together. Now that my mini cake is stacked, I place it next to the real garlic and I carve the cake with a small serrated knife. I shape the cake with one pointed end and one heavier end, similar to the shape of the garlic. Then I crumb coat the cake in a layer of chocolate buttercream. It is so small that it's kind of awkward to spread the buttercream, but with a little finesse, you can make it happen. Once the cake is covered, I spread a little cornstarch on a non-stick mat, and I roll out a very thin layer of white modeling chocolate. Then I place it onto the cake, and I work it around into that garlic shape. With a sculpting tool, I blend the chocolate a little bit. There's really no reason to take your time with it and cover it and make sure that everything is blended perfectly, because it's just going to get covered with a final layer of wafer paper later. Speaking of wafer paper, it's time to start working on it. I cut out a square of vanilla wafer paper and I wet it on both sides using water and a mop brush. Then I gently pick it up, I place it right onto the real garlic, and I pick up the edges of the wafer paper and I'm trying my best to smooth out any wrinkles. I have to be very gentle while working with wafer paper because it can easily tear when it's wet and it cracks when it's dry.
1 hour later.
Once the wafer paper is dry, I start to work it off the garlic. I found out by experimenting with wafer paper over the years that sometimes the paper will pop right off, and then sometimes you gotta work on it a bit. The shape of the garlic has those clove sections, so it's not a perfectly smooth surface, and it can be a little tricky to work that wafer paper off the garlic. But it looks really great once you get it. Now that the wafer paper is peeled off the real garlic, it's time to work on the top of the cake, which is the stem of the garlic. I place a ball of modeling chocolate onto the top, then I blend it in and I add texture to look like the stem of the real garlic. You can use a pointed tool to create this texture, just make sure you keep it random. We want it to look natural and very real. I even pressed little ripped pieces of wafer paper into the chocolate so that it looks like it's previous layers of wafer paper that were peeled away. To add some color to the stem, I used ivory and white food color, and I let it seep into the texture. It will help create these nice darker shadows. And to complete the stem, I brushed on some powdered sugar. I love the matte powdered sugar effect that it gives the stem. With an extremely thin brush, I paint thin brown lines on the garlic skin that radiate out from the stem. To do this, you don't want to use water to dilute your food color, but a strong alcohol or a clear extract. Water will make the wafer paper start to shrivel up, but the alcohol doesn't because it evaporates so quickly. Now that the brown tones are on the skin, I add a few areas that have purple tones. You can see the purple in the real garlic, so I want to include it. Plus, it's pretty. There are a ton of brown tones in nature, so when you come across something that has some purple in it, you want to include it. It's a fun color. And there you have it, a garlic bulb cake. If you like this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for a new video every Monday. All right, it's time to cut the cake. Oh, it really smushed, huh?